to the NightChild Reviews Prince. For the next few days we're going to be discussing this album, Dirty Mind, being described as new funk, new wave. This is a paradigm shift in Prince's career. Now, this album really, I have to apologise for the use of language, this album took balls. It really did, as we say in the UK. This really took some guts, some artistic bravery, some real strong belief in Prince's identity. It's remarkable because at the time the rumour was that Prince had a 3-album deal with Warner Brothers, who produced For You and Prince, and here was his third and last album in the initial deal. And what did Prince give them? He gave them an album that largely you can't play on the radio. You've got songs such as Head, which you can't really play on the radio. You've got Sister. You've got songs like Dirty Mind, which is so difficult to play on the radio. You can't play on the radio. So he gives them this album which a lot of people say sounds like demos. It's kind of very different to the first 2 albums. The first 2 albums, people likened him to Stevie Wonder, and kind of he had that kind of ballad obsession. He kind of was very beautifully done, but it really wasn't genre shifting. It wasn't breaking in to a new audience or a new mould. It wasn't really crossing over from black to white audiences. But this album, this was a seismic shift for Prince. I mean, you've basically got a situation where Prince decided at this moment he was going to be different. This is the moment for me when Prince really became someone who was a true artist. Someone who said, there are times I'm not going to care about the commercialism or something. I'm not going to care about how much this sells. I'm going to make a statement I believe in. I'm going to do something that I think is purely done for artistic merits, and I'm going to do this. And there may be controversy, there may be problems, but this is what I believe in. He's done it subsequently in his life with Around the World Today and many other examples. But this, I think, was the first time he really just let it all hang out. He kind of, almost literally, he kind of let it all out on the field. He really did. Some people argue that all great artists need a certain amount of controversy to get noticed. They need to get noticed, then it draws people in. And once people are drawn in, they start to say, well, oh, this guy's great, or this guy's got some brilliant songs, he's a really great artist, but you have to draw people in the first place. And this certainly had a shock value. One journalist at the time said that he thought this was just a kind of done deliberately only for shock value, that in a year's time Prince would be wearing 3-piece suits and would look like everybody else. Now, clearly that didn't happen. However, I think most people would say that this is probably as raunchy and as explicit and as sexual as Prince got. Arguably, for most of his career, there are other times when he obviously get very sexual, but this is really kind of probably the most raunchy album in lots of ways, in certain ways. This, elements on 1999 too. The interesting thing about this album for me as well is there had been almost, a few little tiny hints like with the song Bambi, but basically this came out of the blue. There hadn't been a lot of kind of expectation that Prince would come out with such a genre shifting, kind of era defining album. It's quite interesting. I mean, the songs are brilliant. Some of these songs are classic Prince songs. There's a couple of songs, me personally, that I don't kind of get as much out of. I don't know if it's because these are perhaps not quite as strong as the rest of the tracks, or because they're surrounded by such great company that they almost pale into insignificance. There's a couple of tracks I'm not a huge fan of, but there are some songs which are absolute stone cold Prince classics. So if you don't agree with me, you don't, just let me know. But there are different thoughts about this. I've also got to say that this was Prince kind of announcing to the world the rude boy was here. Prince was different. Prince wasn't your typical artist. Prince was somebody who was going to push boundaries and push the envelope, as they say. I mean, he talks about oral sex. He talks about free love. He talks about incest. He's wearing trench coat and bikini briefs. I mean, it played into that controversy of was he gay? Was he straight? Was he black? Was he white? What was Prince's sexuality? What was going on here? And for me, it's just such a kind of huge change for an artist to really risk it all, to kind of just go for it. I think that is just the great thing about this album. The music as well, he'd really moved on, he'd kind of got established. I think the first album he was learning his trade, learning the technicalities, wanting everything to be perfect, but this was rougher, this was dirtier, this was minimalist funk, this was a new kind of way, a new way of looking at things. This was really broken down, and the sparsity and the minimalism of the songs quite shocked you, because after Prince's recent work, when you go back to this album, you see how minimal, how much space there was in this album, how stripped down and funky it was. It really is quite a contrast to some of his more recent work. This is a fascinating album. I'm going to start tomorrow with my review of the first song, Dirty Mind, and This is going to be a really interesting album, a highly controversial album, and an album that, can you believe now, is 35 years old. It was released in October 1980 and it's now 35 years old. And yet we're still talking about this. That in itself, I think, is an amazing achievement. Anyway, check out my video tomorrow. I'm going to start with day one, track one, Dirty Mind.